If we want to really appreciate the meaning of Christmas, we need to see it as the culmination of God's cosmic master plan of salvation, which began even before the beginning of creation. In our Advent reflections, we followed that plan as it's unfolded and as God has promised so many times that he would send a Saviour. The plan of salvation was announced even in the Garden of Eden, as Adam and Eve had rebelled against God, as God declared his judgment on the serpent. The wonderful plan began in earnest almost 2,000 years before Christ, when God called one man called Abram to know him. And God's amazing salvation continued through Abram's descendants, as God saved them from slavery in Egypt and made a covenant with them. Out of all the nations, you will be my treasured possession. You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. 1,000 years before the birth of Jesus, God renewed these covenant promises to great King David. A descendant of David will reign over an eternal kingdom. Through the years, the nation of Israel forgot about God who'd rescued them from slavery in Egypt. They rebelled against the God who'd saved them, made alliances with other nations. They worshipped the false gods of the surrounding peoples. But God promised to pour out his blessings once again on the remnant of his chosen people who would remain faithful to him. To them, God promised to send a Saviour who would come to purify God's chosen people and to rebuild the temple of the Lord. And this Saviour will be a king like David, and at the same time a prophet like Moses. He'll bring God's righteousness and justice to the sin-spoiled earth, and he'll restore God's peace and wholeness. The wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together. The lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand into the viper's nest, and they will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. God's Saviour will come to bring comfort and healing to all who are suffering, freedom to all who are held captive by sin. The Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom from the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Through the promised Saviour, God's people will return home to their God once again. They will enter into everlasting joy. Those whom the Lord rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them. Sorrow and sighing will flee away. The promised Saviour will bring God's light to this dark world. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the light of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, kings to the brightness of your dawn. This promised Saviour will bring God's blessings to peoples of every nation and every race, and even the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and make you to be a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles, to open eyes that are blind, to free captives from prison, and to release from the dungeon those who sit in darkness. For centuries, the people of Israel had been waiting for all these promises to be fulfilled through the birth of a baby. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and of peace there will be no end. This was God's promise through the prophet Isaiah. The Virgin will conceive and bear a son, and he will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. And after another 700 years of waiting, that promise and so many others were all fulfilled. The salvation the prophets foretold was beginning to be revealed, and it's the birth of that baby which we're celebrating today, Saviour's Day. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son, and she wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. That's what we're celebrating today. Jesus is the reason for the season. Happy Christmas, everybody.